The MCU is probably the biggest movie franchise right now. Hell, Avengers Endgame just surpassed Titanic and is now the second highest grossing movie of all time. That's crazy. However, Marvel movies weren't always like this. In fact, the MCU made superheroes huge. What were Marvel movies like before this, though? And how did the MCU get so big? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. Hi guys, I'm DPX, and welcome to the In-Depth Detective. Today where we look at the truth behind the MCU and what started it. Before we get there, you know what to do. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications and leave a comment and you'll be a loyal subscriber. Before the MCU, which started with Iron Man, we kept getting movies like Howard the Duck, The Punisher, Captain America, and an unreleased low-budget Fantastic Four movie. Sure, they weren't as well known at the time, but neither was Iron Man when he was introduced. They were trying to get people popular. All the movies, however, were all poorly received. And in the case of the Fantastic Four, never meant to be released. Only made so the studio can have the rights to the Fantastic Four. Well, especially not being released with this shit in it. Look at me! In 1998, Blade, a rather unknown superhero, got a film adaptation with Wesley Snipes in the main role, and many people thought it was good. And in 2000, a movie about the X-Men was released and changed comic book movies. Other movies down the line that were well received include of a sequel to the X-Men being X2 and the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. And some may argue some of the Punisher and Blade 2. But it was ultimately Iron Man that changed it all. Although there was Blade, X-Men, The Punisher, and Spider-Man, they didn't necessarily make it so that all superhero movies are good. There were still failures, whether critically, financially, or both. These include of Daredevil, Ang Lee's Hulk, Elektra, the Fantastic Four movies, and Ghost Rider. Even the four I named at the beginning still had some stinkers like X-Men Last Stand, Spider-Man 3, or Blade Trinity. It is, however, thanks to X-Men that we have the superhero films we get today. At some point, Marvel wanted a shared cinematic universe that they own. Of course, there was the X-Men, but that was owned by Fox, and it was, at the time, recently concluded by one of the worst superhero movies ever. Many people thought it wasn't a good idea to start off with Iron Man, of all people. Keep in mind that making an Iron Man movie at that time was like making, let's say, a Morbius movie. Wait, Marvel was even unsure if Iron Man would be a hit or not. So much so that they also had the Incredible Hulk released the same year. Well, they had some good ideas with Iron Man, like casting Robert Downey Jr. I'd say that was probably the sole reason, if there were to be one, that made Iron Man a huge success. And ironically enough, Incredible Hulk is the closest to a box office failure in the MCU. Still worth noting that it did pretty well. No, I'm not referring to the X-Men character, but rather how huge the MCU has become. After the first Iron Man movie, there were many movies in Phase 1, as well as The Incredible Hulk, as I just mentioned, a sequel to Iron Man, and Thor, and Captain America, the First Avenger, which I personally think was pretty good. But whether they were good or not, they were not able to live up to the standards set by Iron Man, up till Avengers, of course. And after that, we did get Iron Man 3, which was pretty divisive. And then we also got Thor the Dark World, which many people, including myself, thought was really forgettable. But afterwards, it was, for the most part, hit after hit. Both financially, well, that was never a problem, but also critically. The MCU arguably reached its peak when Avengers Infinity War premiered and was released, and became the 5th highest grossing movie at that point, at least. And just a few weeks ago, Avengers Endgame was released and became the 2nd highest grossing movie of all time, even surpassing Titanic. Although Marvel movies started with a rocky start, it took near 25 years to get an actually good and actually Marvel-owned cinematic shared universe. I worded that in such a stupid way, but I hope you understood that. Right now, I'd argue that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is probably the biggest movie franchise at the moment. And despite the whole saga seemingly, or a saga rather, seemingly coming to a close in Endgame, it does not seem to be slowing down. There's a whole list of future MCU movies that will be coming out up until 2022. So, question of the day is, do you think some of the older Marvel movies, like pre-MCU, get a bad rap undeservingly, or do you think that they deserve the bad rap they get? Specifically movies like, Ang Lee's Hulk, the 80s Punisher movie, Elektra, all those movies before the MCU, and really kind of, some of them were before X-Men even. Let me know. And vote in the poll and explain yourself too. And that'll be it for this episode of the In-Depth Detective. What did you think about this? Be sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.